I participated in Kaijune 2026 using the prompt list made by the YouTube channel Subjectively. And I failed. But I still feel like I learned a lot and I wanted to talk about it. Now, if you don't know what half of what I just said meant, let me explain. Kaijune is a drawing challenge like Inktober, taking place during the month of June, where you draw every day for a month based on an overall theme using a list of sub-themes as inspiration for each day. The main theme of Kaijune is, well, kaijus. Basically, Godzilla and other giant monsters who are representations of sentient natural disasters or a metaphor for the atomic bomb. Oh! Also, it features giant robots, since that's how a lot of media depicts how humanity would combat such a threat. Also because giant robots are cool. That's just an objective fact. But you know what isn't objective? The YouTube channel Subjectively. Because, you know, it's in the name. Anyway, Subjectively is an art channel run by Jack and Claire, and in addition to making a prompt list, they also added an additional element of making it a competition, where you could join one of two teams. The stewards, whose goal was the preservation/containment of kaiju, and the accelerationists, who wanted them all swiftly and completely eradicated. I joined the stewards team because, well, I like monsters in a perfectly respectful and innocent way, and it looks like I wasn't alone in that feeling because the stewards team won. Though I wouldn't say my contribution made much of a difference. I already said I failed. I did not quote-unquote do a finished piece every day. I wanted to, but work and other projects made that difficult. What I did make, though, helped me to figure out what my next goal is when it comes to improving my art skills, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. So without further ado, let's see what I was able to make for Kaijune. So only half the process for these designs was done digitally. For each prompt, I started out by sketching in one of my sketchbooks before putting it onto Clip Studio. I'm still not that comfortable doing digital art, so I decided to just focus on trying to do clean line art. No color, just let the design speak for itself. The concept for day one came to me relatively quickly. The idea at first was some kind of creature breaking out of its shell. At first I thought of doing a molted bug shell like a flea or cicada, before settling on a more crab-like design. The idea changed slightly when I got to the digital line art stage. With the humanoid-like face on its back, it gave off an eldritch horror vibe, and trying to make it look like something broke out proved difficult to pull off. So I pivoted to making the opening into an eye, which I felt was more fitting in the end. Especially when I came up with this name, the Sea Monk. I wanted to add some form of texture. I already said I didn't want to color them, but I knew with how simple the design was, it needed something more to add depth, which is why I decided to try and shade it. Not shading in the digital sense, but in the more traditional idea of it. You know, hatching and cross-hatching. Unfortunately, I haven't done much studying on lighting and shadows, so I was mostly winging it. But all things considered, I don't think it turned out too bad. The last thing to mention is that for the competition, we were supposed to give each entry a story. I won't read most of mine because that was the most difficult part for me. Outside of course, making a finished piece every day. Let's just say I had my storytelling brain focused on other things. The overall story for this piece, though, was that this guy doesn't move, or at least hasn't moved since being discovered. Only its massive eye shifts around to gaze at its environment. And if you stare at it for too long, you start hearing voices in your head speaking a language you do not recognize.
Tell me how the grass tastes, little man!
Day 2, the design took a little more time to iron out. My first idea was some kind of bone bird with some graves on its back, but I could never find an overall shape that satisfied me. So I went back to the drawing board and asked myself, okay, this is a sentinel. What is it guarding? My immediate thought was a gate, followed by thinking, wouldn't it be cool if the gate was a part of its body somehow? And once I decided the gate was going to be a Shinto gate, the idea just came together. If you don't know what a Shinto gate is, it's basically a traditional Japanese archway that's found around Shinto shrines. My inner weeb was singing at this point, and I knew I had to make this design as some kind of Oni, because Onis are cool. So after looking up Oni masks and mixing some aesthetic elements of the bone bird that I liked, I got this gorilla-like Oni guy that has his body encased in earth with a Shinto gate at its peak. The story for this one was that if a person could Shadow of the Colossus style successfully climb the Oni and step through the Shinto gate, they could reach paradise or achieve enlightenment or something like that. Regardless, the Oni was not going to let that happen easily. The element that was the hardest part of this design was the arms, but luckily I got this animal anatomy book for Christmas, and it luckily had a page on gorillas, so I just copied part of that. At this point, I was feeling pretty good. 2 successful days under my belt with 2 unique designs, and I was feeling like I could do this. You gotta be kidding me. A horse. You want me to do a horse? People spend years studying how to master drawing those, and you want me to figure out a design in 24 hours? Are you serious subjectively? I know equine doesn't necessarily mean horse, but come on, it's horse. I tried. I really tried. I came up with 3 ideas. One was a blimp with a horse head on the front, but that felt like it barely counted, and I just didn't like it. I also had the idea of doing some kind of Kelpie headless horseman cross made of vines and stones, but there was once again very little horse in it, and it didn't read as a giant monster to me. The last idea was the weirdest. A horse that curled its body up and rolls around like a wheel? Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that either. I'm sure I could have come up with something eventually, but I wanted to keep up with everyone else, so I decided to just skip posting a drawing and move on to the next day. So, in the end, I failed Kaijune because of horse. Things didn't get much better after that. Day 4 S-Stock, I wanted to do a more robotic design, but figuring out all the mechanical details in a day proved too difficult as well, so I didn't post anything for that day either. I completely skipped day 5, and for day 6, I sketched this squid ooze guy that I liked, but didn't know how to shade, so I just left it as a sketch. I then skipped day 7, and for day 8, I sketched this lava crustacean thing that was hiding in the volcano. The idea was that it was releasing a bunch of smaller versions of itself, and it was supposed to have a look like lava running down the volcano. I actually tried doing this piece in color, but I had no idea what I was doing, so I gave up in the end. Day 9, however, is when I finally turned things around.
May Zeus himself strike me down if I'm lying. Hey, didn't strike me though.
To get back on track, for day 9 Tempest, I went with the most simple and straightforward idea I could think of. I made a sentient storm. I did not have an exact idea of the final design after the sketching phase, but I used the phrase roaring thunder for inspiration. It's why you see elements like the claws and fangs, but also the horns on its head give it the feel of an ogre/oni. I didn't put a lot of thought into this one, I just made something I thought looked cool. The shading looked the best on this one, I think. I'm not sure if it's because I got better at shading or because hatching and cross-hatching looks better when trying to represent wind and clouds. Regardless, I think it's one of the designs I could see myself reusing. Maybe for something like an encounter for a D&D game.
This isn't your average everyday darkness. This is Advanced darkness.
I can say with certainty that the prompt for day 10, Abyss, was the one that I put the most work into. I compiled the most references and did the most initial sketches for it. I even fully colored this piece. It was mostly black and gray, but still. I wanted to make a monstrous mer person. Side note, I just want to mention that the app I was using to write this section autocorrected merman to German and merperson to perversion. I don't know what it thought I was writing. But yeah, the idea was some sort of humanoid fish person with the head of a massive sea creature. I was missing those eldritch horror vibes from back when I did the sea monk design. Honestly, the sea creature half, even though I redid it a few times, was the easier part. It was the humanoid part that I had more trouble with. Figuring out the overall body type and what pose it was in. In the end, I found this picture of Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen series that fit perfectly. A relatively fit body type in a pose that had a bask in my presence, you lesser beings kind of vibe. I'm actually proud of myself for how well I copied the general form without having to trace it. I made the hands and feet more fish person-like, and I think I did a good job with the line art, so maybe all the practice from the previous pieces was worth it. One of my favorite tricks that I have learned in Clip Studio was making things look like they're glowing. Seriously, every chance I get, I just like to use that effect. And seeing how most creatures in the deep ocean have some form of bioluminescence, there was no way I wasn't going to incorporate it into the final design. Honestly, the glowing parts were the only colored areas that I actually liked. I couldn't think of better colors to use. Overall, I would say it was an interesting experiment, but ultimately I didn't love the final piece. I'm most likely being overcritical with myself, but character design has always been difficult for me, especially humanoid designs. But with this piece, I decided that my journey with Kaijune 2026 would come to an end. I did do some sketches for day 15 Pugilist, and I did draw a Banshee thing for day 23 Visceral, but overall I wasn't really inspired by any of the remaining prompts. At least, that's what I thought. But there was one half-baked idea I had for one day that just wouldn't leave my head. So as I was editing this video, I decided, I might as well do one more piece. So I skipped the sketchbook phase for this one. Everything was done in Clip Studio Paint, which I still wasn't entirely comfortable with, but in exchange, I used a lot of reference. Only some of which you'll see on screen. When I saw that the prompt for day 3 was Miniscule, I had to do a double take cause, you know, the whole thing about kaijus is that they're big. It felt like some kind of riddle, and well, the solution that I eventually came up with was that the thing that was small wasn't the kaiju, but what the kaiju was interacting with. So technically, I didn't draw a kaiju. At least, not the full creature. The idea was that a child heard a noise at night and peeked out their room to look, only to see a strange glowing light coming from the windows. I don't know what happens next though, and I never will, because I'm never drawing this kid again. Look at him, this Tintin mixed with alfalfa looking boy, which actually was the two references I used for him. I actually had a style I was trying to emulate with this piece, those black and white comics and illustrations from old books and newspapers, which is why I used two older characters as reference. I think I succeeded in matching the reference, but I still don't like him. I want to punt him like a football. I'm not sure what else to say. The wrinkles on the curtains were less reference and more me just following the overall flow. I know I said this piece was monochromatic, but I did color the eye and the light it was projecting. Can't explain my mindset because I can't remember, but I do think it was the correct decision. And of course, I also added the glow effect to the light. Like I said, any chance I get, I like to use it. When it came to coloring the rest of it, however, I don't know which parts should be lighter or darker than each other. I just went by instinct, so it's probably not accurate. As a final step, I added a staticky grain effect on top of everything and lowered the opacity to try and make it look old / printed on something. I don't know if it worked, but I do think it gave it more texture. I honestly think this is one of the best pieces I've done with my current skills, but this piece also just shows me just how much I still have to learn. Doing too much though has never helped me, so for now I'm just going to focus on improving 2 things. Technically 3 things if you count lighting and shadows as 2 separate things. The other thing I'm going to focus on is character design. I've already said how much I struggle with it, and while yes, I feel more comfortable when it comes to creatures, if you asked me to redraw any of my designs from Kaijune, or try to draw them in a different angle, I know just how much I would struggle. I already know what my next video will be, but before I tell you, I want to thank Jack and Claire from Subjectively. Making Kaijune into a competition was a super fun idea and actually made me even more motivated to participate, even if I didn't succeed in doing a piece every day like I initially wanted to. Subjectively is one of the many channels that has motivated me to keep doing art. In fact, their series on making the Maza region, Jack's fan-made Pokemon region, was one of the things that inspired me to draw my own fake Mon, which led me to making my first ever video on this channel. So technically, if it wasn't for them, this channel wouldn't exist. So thanks. Don't tell them I said any of this though. I don't wish to be perceived. I know that sounds weird, seeing as I just posted a whole YouTube video and all, but I don't do this for attention. I just like making stuff. The last people I want to thank is you, the audience. Yes, I know I'm being cheesy. We're almost done, so bear with me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. You know the whole like and subscribe spiel. Okay, no more delays. Let me preview my next video. I'm gonna be branching out a bit. I already said that I love making things, and that's not limited to just drawing. I kept mentioning I was working on another project at the same time as Kaijune, and this is it. I wrote a book. Kind of. Sort of. Still needs a lot of work. We'll talk about it more next time. Until then, have a good morning, noon, or night. Whatever time it is for you, I just hope you have a good one. Later!